So let's go back to 2013, where we got our first film in the DCEU, even though Warner Brothers doesn't completely say that that is the right term for their universe for the DC movies, but everybody calls it the DCEU. So let's go ahead and talk about the first 5 I'm going to review on this channel. I have already reviewed Aquaman and Shazam because those have come out in the past year or so. But I have not reviewed... Actually, I think I did review Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman and Justice League. And Batman v... No, not Batman v Superman. I just reviewed 3 of them, but those were right whenever my channel started, so I'm going to redo those, review the first 5 movies, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. And the other 2 I just reviewed recently, Aquaman and Shazam. And the DCEU is an interesting film franchise because, starting out, let's talk about my least favorite of all of these on rewatch, which is Man of Steel. Man of Steel. Where do we start on Man of Steel? I really love the first 2 Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then 3 is god-awful and boring, and then 4 is so terrible, but it's so hilarious. But the first 2 Superman movies, the Christopher Reeve ones, are so entertaining and so charming and likable. And we go into Man of Steel, which I give everybody involved with this movie credit on being different. Superman, whether you like it or not, Superman being dark is different. It is unique. It is a unique take on Superman in the film world, and I know in the comics Superman has had darker moments, and I haven't read any Superman comics, but I just have heard from online and cultural osmosis that, like, I know that Superman had, like, some things about the comics even though I haven't read them. So this is a darker version of Superman. This came out 1 year after Dark Knight Rises came out. This came out a year after the Nolan trilogy of Batman movies, the Dark Knight trilogy, had ended, where they changed the game for DC movies. Because, like I said, we had the first 4 Christopher Reeve Superman movies, which are really cheesy, but fun and sincere. And then you had Superman Returns, which was kind of more in the vein of, like, a modern-day superhero movie. And then the Batman movies, you got the first 2 Batman Michael Keatons, which were a little more serious, but they were kooky and fun. And then you got Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, which were really silly. And then the Dark Knight trilogy, which is not like the other movies, is what I'm saying. It's not like the other Batman or Superman movies, where it is... The Dark Knight trilogy was so dark and so serious that it changed how DC viewed these movies, because while at first they were light and fluffy, you got to the Dark Knight trilogy, which was dark, serious, brutal, and I'm fine with Superman being dark, I guess, but the thing that I didn't like is that this cribbed so much on the Dark Knight trilogy, where it didn't feel like it needed to be that way. Like, Superman in this... Like, all the characters in this movie for me are so, honestly, in this one film, they are so forgettable and so boring. It just, I don't know, I'll get to that in a minute, but I'll start out with the opening of the movie. The opening, I like how it's like the original movie's opening, the original Superman from 1978, where Krypton is being destroyed, and this one includes action sequences of Krypton being destroyed while Kal-El, Superman's mother and father, are in the mix of this happening, while General Zod takes over and gets imprisoned. So this, I do like the uniqueness to this one as opposed to the original, where the original one was more on whimsy and like you don't really see anything. You just see that Superman is like born, and then his father sends him away, but you don't really see much of it. In this one, you see what happens, which was a cool touch. Now, the scenes of Clark Kent as a child, I actually didn't mind. I liked some scenes with these characters, and whenever I say the characters are forgettable, for the most part, they are. whenever they're very serious. But I really like the scenes of him as a kid. Like, I love the scene where his foster mother, Martha, or his not his real mother, but his real mother to him, because he didn't know his parents. There's a great scene of him as a kid where he is honing in all these powers, where everything is so overwhelming to him in his mind. Everything is just, like, in his head. He can't control it all. So he's hiding in a closet, and all the kids are making fun of him, calling him weird. And then Martha comes in and tells him how to concentrate, and whenever all the sights and sounds are overwhelming to him, and like she says, what do you see? Do you see this light? And he says yes. Like, and she says, go to it. And it just was a very sincere, emotional moment with making Superman this type of, like, having a personality whenever he was a kid more than he was an adult. And also the idea of using the flashbacks, but not in order, I think is a cool way of doing it in this movie. Not a lot of superhero movies do that. I know Captain Marvel just did that, which it was cool in that one too. So, but there's not a lot of them that do this. I do like how this has that kind of uniqueness about it. Again, this is a unique Superman movie. It is. It's just not one I love. And there's also a lot more Lois Lane in this one because of the time frame that the other movies were in. Lois Lane was definitely more of a side character because women were not as important in movies. Like, they didn't have, there were a lot of movies where it was just the males only and then the woman is a side character. I like how in this one Lois Lane is almost as important as Clark Kent is. I think that's cool. I think that's great because we have really come far from the original 1978 Superman. So I do like that. And Amy Adams, despite having to deal with this with what she has to do in the movie, she's still serviceable, but she plays it in a bland way, and so does Henry Cavill. Like, they both, for some reason, they're both incredibly bland in this movie, and I've seen them both be good in other things. They just really play it so straight and so boring. And it's a shame because I do like those two actors in a lot of other things. Like, they are good in other movies. Really good in other movies. But it's just weird that they are so bland. And Lois Lane, again, I do like how she's more important in this one as opposed to the original where she was just kind of the love interest that had to be saved. In this, it's not really as much the case. And, again, none of the performances are bad. There's not much charm or charisma to it. Everyone is playing it so straight that it just feels like these characters are plot points. They're not like actual characters with emotion, with characteristics, with range. Like, it doesn't feel like that really in this movie. And again, because it continued off of the Dark Knight trilogy where, like, Christopher Nolan was even involved in this movie, like, he's a producer, it was way more dark. But then it had jokes in it in this movie where the jokes, I think, are so pointless. The jokes in this movie don't work for me, and they even make it even more awkward with the jokes. Like, there's a scene at the end of the movie where, like, at the end after Superman, like, saves the day, he's talking to this group of people, and then Superman leaves, and then this one girl in the military is smiling, and the guy's like, what are you smiling about? And she's like, oh, nothing. I just think he's really hot. And just cut away. And then there was a joke about a drone. And this literally happened after the fucking thing where he destroyed all these buildings and killed probably dozens of people, but still. The jokes didn't work for me. Especially in that placement. That is such a bad placement in the movie. Really didn't like that. And this does, again, have some good emotional moments. Like I said, with the mother, whenever with Martha, where she tells Superman to, like, hone in on his strength, like, hone in on, like, you see a light, go to it. Like, it really works in that way with moments like that with him as a kid. And there are some good scenes with his father, who Kevin Costner plays. That's a cool choice for Pa Kent. That's a cool, like, casting choice. I do like Kevin Costner. where there's a scene where this is in most superhero movies, but I really do like the way that Kevin Costner played this dialogue in this scene, where he says, where Clark Kent wants to hit this bully, and he's like, well, what good would it be if you hit the bully? What would you have accomplished? Like, what would you have accomplished if that happened? And it just, because of him involved, like, it was a really great moment. I really like that. And since this is a superhero movie, of course it's got action in it. The action in this movie is incredibly forgettable to me. I don't think none of it is memorable. Like, it's just mindless action where, like, shit is getting destroyed. There's nothing to it. It reminded me of this first movie in this universe reminded me of, say, a Transformers movie where it's just shit getting blown up, shit getting thrown into, destroyed, like Superman and Zod at the end get thrown into all of these buildings, which, again, even the smartest person would understand, like, they've probably just killed dozens of people, literally, in this fight, flying around the city, destroying all of these buildings, flying through them and all of them falling down, people inside of them. Like, in terms of the logic of that, and I know it's a superhero movie, I know it is, but that to me is just so stretching it, because Zack Snyder, who directed this movie, directed things like 300, Sucker Punch, Watchmen, and his movies, for me, I think that he is a great visual director. Maybe not in this one. I didn't think the visuals or action weren't really that great in this one, but even in bad movies like Sucker Punch, like the visuals, like the cinematography, like it looked really cool even though it sucked. And then Watchmen was a good movie, I thought, all around. And he just, in this, like, he's very good at visuals and action. This is the only one I don't really like, his action or his visuals, but he really is good at action and visuals in his movies. But he sucks at everything else. And I don't want to be that fanboy of, oh, this Zack Snyder sucks, he's horrible. I don't think he's horrible at all. He's a competent filmmaker in terms of, like, cinematography and action and scope. Like, he really is a big person with scope. Like I said, make something so little out of something like Sucker Punch, which visually is incredible looking. Like, I love the visuals in that movie. But again, like most of his movies, not all of them, most of them, the writing in it sucks. And I don't remember if he wrote this one or not. I think somebody else did. I think he doesn't really write his stuff. I think he just does the directing. But it's like watching, like, to me, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, it's like watching a little kid play with his toys. This is what this movie was. But there's no smartness to it. It's just a lot of mindless action. Like, I don't know. In this one, I really didn't like the action or the visuals. And again, he's a good, competent filmmaker in terms of visuals and cinematography. He is. And action is good in some of his movies too. But there's nothing else he's really good at in his other movies. It's just they're very visual movies that almost all of his movies look great. They look fantastic. This is one of the only ones that I actually don't like how it looks. Like I said. So it's just forgettable action. It really is. And it's so dull because I don't care about Clark Kent or Lois Lane. Because these actors who are great in other things just don't have anything to go on. They're in very bland, boring writing. And they're played so boring and straight, even though these actors can be very charismatic and great in other stuff. So the action is just very by the numbers action. It's incredibly forgettable, the action. Like, they run into buildings and that's it. There's nothing to it. And again, logically, every fucking person in Metropolis should be dead because they destroy almost every building in the goddamn, like, area. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't get it. And then Superman, there's this big whoa shit moment, which is in the comics, I know, in that Superman kills Zod, at the end, but there's this dumb thing where it's like these people are in a corner and he's got the laser eyes. They could have just moved a little more to the side and then it would have been done. Superman wouldn't have had to snap his neck and kill him. Even though Zod is a villain, I understand that. And I know they wanted that big oh shit moment because they want to make Superman in the movies darker. But it's bad because you get a couple of these movies and then they take that away because they wanted to make a dark DC universe. And I understand doing the opposite of Marvel, that is a cool idea, but it just didn't work for me or a lot of people where it's dark and it's not entertaining and it's boring. In this one, this is the only one that I really don't enjoy much. I think it's totally totally serviceable and average. But there's just... It's just got too many stupid things to it. Like, the characters are just so bland and boring. The action is bland and boring. There's some alright character moments of him as a kid. But that's all I can really give it. Again, the action and the characters are forgettable. And then it's so stupid. Like, they don't even think about that, again, it's a comic book movie, but they literally... Superman and Zod kill probably everybody in Metropolis, going through all these buildings, and then then I guess people gave so much of backlash to this in Batman v Superman. They mention all the time, we're at a place where nobody's at, like at the end of Batman v Superman, where they're fighting on that harbor, and they have the military people have to mention, oh, there's nobody here, it's empty, because of this movie, because of how stupid it is, where everybody would have been dead. But again, this one, I don't hate it. I really don't. It's just my least favorite of all the DC EU. It's just really bland and forgettable. It's not much for me to go on. And all the stupid stuff that logically, it's like if he killed all these people, and then they have a stupid joke about him being hot, and then jokes about drones, the scene after he snaps Zod's neck, tonally, that's just so stupid as well. So... This movie doesn't make me angry, but I don't like this movie, really. I think it's just completely average and serviceable. There's nothing unique. I mean, it's unique, but there's nothing... It's unique as a Superman movie as opposed to the ones we already got, but it's not unique in terms of, the whole, superhero movies that we've gotten. It's just bland and forgettable to me. So that's basically it. That's my thoughts on Man of Steel from 2013. A really bland and forgettable movie. And I know people love it. There's people who love it, and that's totally fine. I don't want to try to take it away from you guys, even though it's my opinion on this video. But I really don't think this one's that great. It's just average, forgettable blockbuster. Nothing to it really. For me personally. So that's my thoughts on Man of Steel. Next up, I will review Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Cut. So stay tuned for that, and thank you guys so much for watching.